The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Oh, you're off and at it on the message board. I see you already and love to hear it. A Mizzou win is like a Vandy win. Just do it. I really think Josh Heupel blows out Dinklewitz again, and the hype for the East next week will be off the chain. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. How many live action penalties will be called on Saturday? The Vols have missed a lot of those, so we've got a lot to get to. Needless to say, Caleb Calhoun as Tennessee plays Missouri in what is probably the final swing game of the season for Tennessee. I'm not booking a Georgia loss or a Vanderbilt win, but it is what it is. You only have so many swing games on your schedule, and I think we thought before the season that this would be one, and I think right now we think that this could be one as well. Could go either way. Caleb, how are you?
Pretty good, and I agree. How are you doing, Dave?
Yep, I'm never better. So coming up on the program, it's a Thursday. That means Josh Ward will join us. Josh, with a great piece on the road Vols, how's Tennessee historically done on the road with Josh Heupel. Also, we'll discuss with Josh Joe Milton's late season resurgence. How does it compare to Jarrett Garantano, Joshua Dobbs, Jonathan Crompton, Eric Ainge? After this week, it may be right up there. Caleb will have his Week 11 picks, and we start with today's tough question, which is already on the YouTube channel. If you haven't done this yet, smash that like button, hit subscribe, do that. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us bring more people to the channel. Always support our sponsors. That's why we're here. But if you would like to go to the YouTube page specifically, I have today's tough question that's been out there. What would we call it? Marinating for a little bit. And I don't want to know what Caleb says yet until I tell you today's tough questions, brought to you by Andy Mason, realestate.com. Today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, it is on the YouTube channel now, and it is pretty simple. So you just go to YouTube. You just click towards Off the Hook Sports. It's pretty simple there. And then I've got the question right up top. So I have not checked it since I posted it by design. I wanted to see where you guys stand. So the question is pretty simple, poll question. And I will ask Caleb this first. I can get it to pull up. My fault, Caleb. I'm struggling. That's all right. I got it. Okay, so a win beating Missouri would mean blank. A successful season. Wait, let's see. Beat Georgia, or wait, let's see. Vandy isn't that bad. So if you had to fill in the blank, Caleb, you got those three choices. It's today's tough question, brought to you by Andy Mason, realestate.com. Best prices and service in the biz. How about over 40 years of experience right there in Knoxville? What would you take of those three?
So successful season, wait and see. And what was the third one?
Wait, let's see. Vandy isn't that bad. So essentially you're saying this is the season, or you're saying Tennessee can beat Georgia, or Tennessee could lose to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they're not losing to Vanderbilt. I'm not a wait and see with Vanderbilt. Tennessee
that has a 0 vote to this point, by the way.
Yes, it's a successful season. If they beat Missouri, win or lose against Georgia, it's a successful season. I think the hope was 10-2. Vegas set Tennessee's win total, I believe, at 8.5. And so if they win this, they will surpass their regular season win total that Vegas set for them. How do you not call that successful? I mean, we all believed that the future of Tennessee was Nico Iamaleava next year. This year was just a stay above water year, maintain the momentum until you're ready for Nico to get out there. if you go 10-2 in 2022 and 9-3 in 2023, I fail to see how you didn't maintain the momentum, even if you did have a bad loss on your resume, which was at Florida. Now, for people that want to bring that up, and yes, that was a bad loss. And again, depending on what happens this weekend, we might start having a conversation on that loss being one of the 3 worst in Tennessee football history based on the damage it caused. But until we get to that point, it ain't like Tennessee didn't have a bad loss last year to South Carolina. So I think that hasn't changed much. And you wouldn't see much difference from 2022 to 2023 other than you're playing Alabama on the road instead of at home. I mean, if they lose to Georgia next week, Dave, we're just going to say that they were outmatched. Last year's Tennessee-Georgia game, for instance, for everybody that's like they lost to Georgia last year, but it was on the road. Do you think if that game is at home, Tennessee's beating Georgia? I don't. Last year's Georgia game.
No, I mean, the road crowd ended up being a topic of conversation, but I don't think it really mattered. That Georgia team was significantly better. If I ask you the flip side of it, so if they lose, is it not a successful season? That would put you potentially 8 wins for the regular season.
I think it is they maintained their above water season, but it was not a successful season because you needed to go over that 8.5. I think the 8.5 crossing that was the goal, the Vegas win total. They could still do it, but to make it a successful season, they got to beat Georgia. And that's a heck of a lot harder than it is to beat Missouri, even though Missouri's on the road. So I think a lot of the season does come down to this game. You win this game, you kind of go into Georgia, depending on what happens. Now, if you win this game and Georgia beats Ole Miss, you're going into next week and kind of playing with house money because you have no chance of winning the East or making the college football playoff at that point. If you win this game and Georgia loses, pressure is all of a sudden on next week for Tennessee, Georgia. So I don't know what would put Tennessee in a position to play better. Would they be better with the pressure on and the chance to win the East next week? Or would they be better with no pressure and would they just be demoralized if they can't win the East going into the game?
Probably demoralized, I would think. But again, you're taking into account that Georgia's going to drop a game. So they'll know that they could beat Missouri and then not have a chance to win the East as well.
It all comes down to this weekend. It solely depends on Tennessee, and Tennessee has to win. Georgia has to lose. If Georgia wins this weekend, it's over. Georgia wins the East.
If that's the most likely scenario, what's Tennessee's psychology if they beat Missouri? We're not looking past Missouri, by the way. Missouri is a very good football team, and Tennessee has to go on the road against a team that would love to exact some revenge after Josh Heupel ran up the score last year. So we're not foregoing a Missouri win by any stretch of the imagination. But if you go into next week against Georgia and, yes, you beat Missouri, great job, but you're still not playing for the SEC East, what's your mindset?
I think it depends on – I don't know how this team's mindset is. I don't know what it's like. It's
But see, I don't want to bring it back, but I'm going to – college football playoff, that game would still be monstrous. You could win your way in with a loss to Missouri if you beat Georgia.
You can't teams. You can't win your, huh?
With 12 teams. That's why you should love 12 teams. I'm winning you over.
You're not. I don't think if Tennessee loses to Missouri that they would ever deserve to play in any college football playoff. A 9-3 team doesn't deserve to go ever.
But they're going to.
But I know, and that's going to ruin the sport. I want the regular season to matter. I like the fact, look, the Florida game could end up being a devastating loss for Tennessee. But I like the fact that it would end up being a devastating loss. It would send a message. You can't take weeks off in college football. You owe your fans to not take weeks off.
All right. You're not going to admit you're wrong, but that's fine. Relive the greatest season in Tennessee football with the behind-the-scenes stories about the 1998 National Championship team. Click below for Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship team. Available in soft and hardcover, personalized autographed copies available. Click below. But you're not willing to say this is a failure if Tennessee loses to Missouri and only wins 8 games this year. Are you, or are you?
I'm saying it's a slight disappointment. There are tiers here, Dave. There's tiers. So, and when I say there are tiers, you know, like when you could like underachieve a little bit, but you wouldn't say it was like a drastically disappointing season. The 99 season.
It's called the ACT for me.
Okay. The 99 season. They underachieved. They started the year ranked number 2. They went 9-2. But do you look back on the 99 season and say that was just a devastatingly disappointing season? No, you say, okay, they didn't do what they should have done. They should have won the East and played and won a third straight SEC title and played for a second straight national title. They didn't do that. But it wasn't like a drastically disappointing season. The 02 season was drastically disappointing when they started the year number 5 and then went 8-5 and finished unranked and lost 30-3 to Maryland in the Peach Bowl. That's drastically disappointing. You see what I'm saying?
No, I do. Portions of the program brought to you by Don Self at State Farm. Customer service still matters. State Farm agent Don Self and his team take customer service seriously. Everybody's shopping on prices now. I understand that. But for well over 40 years, Don Self and his staff has built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers in Collegedale and Ooltewah, as well as the greater Chattanooga area. Whether it's your small business or family, Don Self can certainly take care of all of your insurance needs. So check them out. What do you make of the line? And hasn't moved much or has kind of just waffled at a pick 'em? Caleb, what do you read into the line? I like to get your insight on this because you're more of a gambler than I am.
I'm reading Tennessee should be thrilled with the line, honestly. The line started as a pick 'em, and then it moved to Tennessee -1.5. It's now up to Tennessee -2. And for those who don't know how lines work, if a line moves towards another team, what that typically means is the Vegas insiders say, oh, we really screwed up. This team's much better than we thought. There's something favoring this team. We need to slightly move the line or else we're going to suffer a bad beat. So either they set that line and then did some research on Tennessee and they're like, oh, Tennessee's better than we thought. Or there is some news, Dave, that you and I don't know about that is...
I have trouble believing there's news I don't know about.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
But there is news you and I don't know about, either an injury or somebody getting healthy or something like that is leading the Vegas insiders to say, oh, no, we didn't know about this. We got to move it. Now, Luther Burden, Missouri's wide receiver, being listed as questionable. I think that's gamesmanship by Eli Drinkwitz, but maybe Vegas knows something that we don't, that he's actually not ready to go. You were the one who knew that Vegas's line was dead on for South Carolina because you knew that Cooper Mays was coming back that week.
Yes, not through Cooper, but I didn't know. So who would move the line this week on Tennessee's side? There's really not anybody. When you talk about their most impactful players, Haddon and Peely, they're out for likely the season. Those guys aren't bouncing back anytime soon. I can't think of an injured ball that would come back that would affect the line by a half or a point or move it at all.
Yeah, and it's been moving towards Tennessee, meaning the idea is, it'd be an injured ball who's going to get on the field, but I think Tennessee's right now is as healthy as it's going to be. It's not, you know. So who is out is out, and who's in is in.
No, totally agree. All right, here we go. So coming up, it'll be Josh Ward in just a minute. But first, this to me is a little bit bizarre because I think it's a sign that our country's gone a little bit soft. I'm just going to be really honest with you. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Now, back in my day, Uncle Dave story time. Back in my day, the goal was to score as many points as you could score. And the other team's goal was to stop you from scoring as many points as you could score. Nowadays, it seems as if there should be some sort of cap on that. And Josh Heupel perhaps paying a price among his coaching brethren that think he runneth up the score a bit too easy. It's pertinent because I think there's no question Josh Heupel did run up the score against Missouri last year. And that was in response to Eli Drinkwitz going on the Jim Rome show and saying, oh, Tennessee's going to have to vacate wins. They're in all this trouble with the NCAA. If you don't remember how just incredibly stupid that was, go back and listen to it. Maybe we'll pull it up at some point. But it appears as if Josh Heupel maybe is becoming an enemy of other college football coaches not named Eli with the comb over. So a Jim Mora handshake makes some news. What do you make of the Jim Mora handshake now? UConn's head coach. Did he just totally dismiss Josh Heupel? Did he give him the middle finger? What did he do here?
It was just an icy handshake where Mora shook his hand but didn't look at him and then walked away. And it was like a quick handshake and walk away, basically. It was the way Bill Belichick is to the media after he loses games, you know, when he's icy and he tries to give the smallest, shortest answer possible And like that was Jim Moore with Josh Heupel here. And I think that, I think there was Moore was upset because apparently my guess is Tennessee players were talking a lot and rubbing it in on UConn. I don't know if you guys saw Omar Norman Lott carrying the Tennessee flag right through all the UConn players after the game, but that was because there was some beef before the game. UConn was warming up on Tennessee's side of the field. They were trying to employ some of their own gamesmanship, so Tennessee players kind of stuck it to them, and I think they were kind of upset about it, and so I think that was a bit of a shot.
Okay, so how's their beef with UConn? If this is Georgia, if this is Florida or Alabama, this is a big time story, but you're supposed to go out and beat UConn. I understand the pregame little malfeasance was out there, and then you had this after the game. But why do you have beef with UConn? Portions of the program brought to you by Apex Apparel Group. Design, brand, market your way. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. ApexApparelGroup.com. ApexApparelGroup.com. How do you do that? I mean, how is UConn the center of some sort of, I don't know, manliness contest, for lack of a better term?
It's not a manliness contest. It's I think they would have willingly just beat him, but I think UConn was talking, and so I think Tennessee wanted to add a little juice laid on them. That happens a lot when you play lesser schools. It's if you're going to talk, you got to take the heat when you talk.
We have some insight by our message board. Do we want to get to that?
Sure, let's go.
This is pretty good stuff. So here's some insight from our message board you can't get anywhere else. Travis says, Jim Morris said, and I quote, "You should have ran Sampson against Florida." And Heupel giggled. That's not what was said. Photo 22 says, I saw Morris said something along the lines of, "At least you won't make the playoffs." Travis says, I saw Nico's a bust. I don't think any of those things happen. Let's face it, Josh Heupel is going to make enemies, and I'm totally okay with that. That's the what the H is. Why is anybody surprised that he's making enemies? He wants to score a lot of points. His offense is predicated on that. His entire program is predicated on that. You typically don't want to give up a lot of points. You're going to make enemies. Who cares?
Yeah, you are. And the funny thing, though, is that Josh Heupel doesn't talk in press conferences like he's making enemies. That's what makes him so much different from so many other coaches, is when you hear him talk, he's not Steve Spurrier. He's not out here throwing shots at people. You know what I mean? He's not Urban Meyer giving the middle finger saying, I don't care if you guys hate me. I'm going to start players even if they may be killers. And he's not either one of those. He says absolutely nothing at press conferences, but is very nice to the media. He's not Nick Saban, who's just openly mean to the media, but you agree with me on this, right, Dave? Even though Saban's mean to the media, he doesn't not give you quotes. He gives you quotes, doesn't he, for your story? So yeah. Heupel is not going to give you any good quotes, but he'll be nice to you in the media, and he won't take any shots.
Yeah, he takes pride in saying nothing. He went to when he was working in Missouri, he had an offensive coordinator press conference, and he went up to the guy afterwards and he said, "Try to get something out of that." So he specifically doesn't give quotable quotes or insight to his program. And the other red flag that you get, and he doesn't do this as bad, but at press conferences, if you want to know a coach that doesn't feel good about the ground they're standing on, they'll say a lot of, "Hey, Caleb, that's a good question." So they refer to you by your name to endear themselves, and then they compliment you on the question, because then they're trying to win the media. "Hey, Caleb, good question. Our defensive line does need to do this." So we're not hearing that from Josh Heupel, but don't you think his style of play is going to make him unlikable throughout his career, except for the fans that he's playing for and coaching for?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's one, if you're a college football purist, you already hate it because he's just taking advantage of the new rules of college football that everybody hates, that old school people hate. You know, they want the toughness and the defense and to have 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. And you just don't get that with Josh Heupel. So there's already that, but I think you're right. But at the same time, I think the thing that drives me crazy is we watched him last week against UConn. He didn't run up the score at all. He put Nico in for a drive, scored a touchdown, and then just ran the ball and ran the clock out the rest of the way, which I don't believe. I think you put your backups in and you run your full offense and still run tempo and still go no huddle. I mean, but it wasn't like he pulled a Jimmy Johnson calling a fake punt when he was up by 40.
Yeah. Well, Travis says as long as we love him, who cares? That's true, but don't feel bad about defending him with your friends either. Don't feel bad about defending him on message boards and those sorts of things, because when you're trying to build a program, you want to blow people out. You want somebody to say, "Oh my gosh, look at that. Tennessee just scored 60 again." That was last year. And this year, Tennessee's offense may not be that, but you want to get attention. You want to handle the UConn. And more importantly, Steve Spurrier taught us all this. No, he ran the same offense when his second teamers were in the game, but he ran it exactly like he would run it with the starters. That made the second string better from year to year, Caleb, and that makes a big difference. Josh Heupel is just going to make a lot of people mad. If 75% of the coaches don't like Josh Heupel out there, then I think that's a good sign for Josh Heupel's career.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Who's the last successful coach that every one of their peers liked him?
Funny you should say this. A guy came up to me the other day and said, I was telling him some things I'd heard about coaches and how the two coaches I heard that you most didn't want to coach for from a scout, and this was across the board, was Johnny Majors and Lou Holtz. And he said, what did you think about Gene Stallings? And I was like, it's really hard to find something not to like about Gene Stallings. The guy that, now he cheated a little bit, but he walked away from coaching to be there for his, I believe it's son that is, has some mental ailments, for lack of a better term. I believe that's Down syndrome. And to walk away from that and then support that person and support that cause, walk away from being a championship team, it's pretty hard not to like that guy, Caleb.
Oh, I agree. And by the
well,
way,
who else? But that's been 30 years.
And also, I'm just going to be honest. I don't think Gene Stallings was that great of a coach. I think that's just evidence of how easy it is to win at Alabama. I bring that up all the time. Alabama is the type of program that, unlike Tennessee, I'm sorry, it's on a tier a little bit higher where you can coach at Alabama and be terrible and still have a top 10 team one year.
Agreed. I wouldn't argue that, but just coaches that are winning championships, who would you say, man, that guy would be cool to hang out and have a beer with?
Nobody except for Steve Spurrier, but everybody hated Spurrier. But I'd love to hang out with Spurrier because he would just be honest. But Nick Saban would be the worst coach to ever hang out with, and so would Urban Meyer. They're the driest personalities possible, and I think that I'm with you. Coaches that everybody likes. Again, I tell you this story. I'll never forget being down in Baton Rouge in 2010, and LSU fans saying, I think Tennessee fans should stick with Dooley. He's a real good guy. I'm like, they would never say that if they thought Dooley was a threat.
2 minutes, we visit with Josh Ward. Look at me, no contacts, no glasses. That's thanks to Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. I love it. Local vision correction, and they care about you on a personal level. Josh Ward, the one, the only, up next in 2 minutes.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vols collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Let's bring Josh in here, and he can answer today's tough question before we get to a great column he wrote on offthehooksports.com. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. And we're going to talk Joe Milton comeback season. How does that compare to some other former Vols out there that play the quarterback position? But Josh, first of all, I asked a question on YouTube this morning. I said, if Tennessee beats Missouri, and I gave these three options, the season is a success. Wait, maybe Georgia, or wait, maybe Vanderbilt. In other words, Tennessee could beat a better team like Georgia or could slip up against Vanderbilt. If you had to pick the three, would you take your money and run with a win at Missouri?
Yeah, there would be a Vanderbilt contingency. You know how when you go under contract to buy a house, you still have to go through some steps before it becomes official. Tennessee would have to beat Vanderbilt, but I'm going to give the assumption that the Vols will beat Vanderbilt at home to close out the season, which would clinch a 9-win regular season for Tennessee, which I think would be a success.
Okay. Yep. I completely agree with that. Portions of the program brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. Actually, somebody that I talk to on a daily basis just worked with City, and they said they're going to get that part. It's going to take a little bit longer, but I don't have to buy a whole new unit, which costs tens of thousands of dollars. cityheatandair.com. So, Josh, you were off and writing, as we always enjoy your contributions via the written word on offthehooksports.com. And historically, the Vols struggle on the road. Can Tennessee beat the odds against Missouri? So you illustrated some struggles that I want to go through that Tennessee had on the road. First, let me ask you, was there any common thread, any common theme among those games when you did the research and then you've lived it for the past 3 years? Do you see any common theme when Tennessee struggles on the road, or no?
Well, not really. I do think earlier in the day is a benefit in terms of trying to get the job done. They have multiple wins early. Now, the Pittsburgh game is one of those where it wasn't smooth sailing, but Tennessee did win on the road. It got a lead and then had to hold on in the end, going to overtime, where the defense actually had to bail the offense out. Against LSU, Tennessee cruised. But if you were of the mindset that the earlier in the day we play on the road, the better, it would fit to have a better setup 2:30 local time in Columbia, Missouri versus a night game, which was the other option for this weekend. The early losses came where there was just a clear advantage for the opponent. So if Tennessee is going on the road against a team that on paper or according to odds makers is definitely better, I would say good luck to the Vols. That does not apply to this game.
Yeah, Josh, I was talking earlier, the line started this week at as a pick'em, and it's moved 2 points to Tennessee this as the week's gone on, which means that there's something people don't know about Missouri. And also, is this road woe story with Tennessee a little overrated? Is it basically because of 2 games, South Carolina and Florida, during the Heupel years? Because we bring up Georgia and Alabama, but I think those teams are just better than Tennessee, honestly.
Yeah, I do too. And my answer is maybe so, because I think it's a common concern for just about any team that goes on the road. I mean, next week when we talk about Tennessee, Georgia, what's the number one reason we're going to say Tennessee has a shot? They're playing at Neyland Stadium, not playing in Athens, and that's against a team that is superior from a talent standpoint. So even with Georgia, or if we talk about Alabama or some of the other best teams, Michigan this weekend, part of it is going to be, well, they have to go away from home. So, yeah, the Florida and South Carolina thing kind of makes it funny because this conversation is about ranked foes. So the better competition. Florida, not great competition this year. South Carolina last season on the road for Tennessee, not great competition. But those are 2 of the biggest stinkers that Tennessee has had. So part of that can be overlooking the opponent when you have to go take them on when they're clearly inferior based on how a season plays out. So can it be played up a little too much? Maybe so. We'll get a better answer this week. If Tennessee has put together back-to-back road wins against Kentucky, which is a borderline top 25 team when they're squaring off, and then Missouri, which is a top 20 team, if Tennessee can do that back-to-back, it will quiet some of the talk about can Josh Heupel's team go on the road and take care of business.
Let me ask you this. Tennessee's best and worst performances on the road. I would think that LSU game last year is probably a pretty easy one to pick for easiest, but maybe as far as worst, to the one that you thought Tennessee was in good shape and didn't show up like they should. That'd be South Carolina, I guess. I just made this really easy for you, right?
Yeah, well, again, that kind of depends on the column was about ranked teams because Missouri is that. If it's showing up and laying an egg against anybody on the road, then it's South Carolina, considering that wasn't a very good team and it was a huge stage. The Florida showing was no good this season, but there is a qualifier. Tennessee wasn't a very good team at the time. They had to improve, which they've done as the season has gone along. And then Cooper Mays was not there with the team. He's just one player, but we've established, everybody has at this point, that he's a very important player. If we were going through these ranked games that Tennessee would be disappointed in the performance, the Pittsburgh game where they won, is one where I don't think anybody looks back at that game fondly. They look back at it as a sigh of relief because think about how special last season was. It's not that if they hadn't pulled that game out in overtime. So, I might go second half against Alabama. The way Tennessee let that game go away after building a 13-point lead in the first half, better team. I do think Alabama's the better team than Tennessee, but the Vols had the advantage with 2 quarters to play and totally collapsed in the third and fourth quarters.
Yeah, but again, even that Alabama game, was that a collapse or Josh pinning that one down? I'm still on I think Alabama was just that much better and turned it on in the second half, honestly. Because Tennessee could not buy 3 yards on the ground against Alabama. The defensive line just manhandled the offensive line in that game.
Well, that to me is the disappointing part because we've seen Tennessee with its offensive line against Texas A&M go out and do everything it wanted to on the ground. And we saw Tennessee against Kentucky, which doesn't have Alabama personnel, but has quality players. Tennessee did everything it wanted to in the second half against Alabama. Tennessee couldn't do anything. And players after the game, at least Elijah Herring, admitting, we kind of thought we had the game won. Alabama was a mentally tougher team in the second half, and there's no argument against that. So is Alabama better? Sure. 14 points better over 2 quarters? Yeah, maybe so, but the difference was greater than that. That's why I think it was so disappointing. Tennessee went in with a 13-point advantage, and even with a drop-off from the first half, still should have had a shot to win that game, but that didn't end up happening. So part of that was because of talent, but I think even more of that came from Alabama said, not today. Alabama, this is not a historically great Nick Saban team. This is one of the most mentally tough teams he's had. That was not a half where Tennessee showed that.
Aren't Tennessee fans in a great conversation when we talk about the disappointing road game is a second half, as I lose the ability to speak, second half against Alabama?
Yeah.
I mean, that's on schedule for year 3 if you're rebuilding the program, right? Where your disappointment is not finishing out the Crimson Tide on the road.
Yeah, that still speaks to program development for sure because we spent so much time talking about Tennessee having no shot going in against Alabama. That's also why I still think it's a little frustrating, though, because the question going in was how Tennessee would handle the environment. And over the first 2 quarters, Tennessee handled it just fine. Now, was Tennessee's coaching staff as aggressive as they needed to be in the second half as opposed to the first half? They've done a great job coming out, scripting what they're going to do offensively, having a really good game plan. But Nick Saban at halftime, and I do think we can overstate what happens in the middle of the game. Peyton Manning has said that. So you can throw out the Butch Jones quote. Peyton Manning said halftime adjustments are overrated. But a lot of people have said Nick Saban is very good at figuring out what are we not doing right, where do we need to be better, how do we gain the advantage back. And I think he had the advantage against Tennessee in that game.
Harold Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer one school at a time. Go to your school administrator and say, they're in private schools now. They need to be in public schools. We're putting the pressure on Congress. Harold Group Security Solutions, making your children safer, avoiding those tragedies that we've all heard about in at school and in the workplace as well. Changing gears a bit, what do you think of Joe Milton's resurgence? Is that more UConn? Is that more Joe? Is that more time? Just making him a better quarterback, and then we'll compare and contrast those to some other resurgent quarterback balls of the past. But what are your thoughts on Joe Milton to this point over the past couple weeks of the season?
Yeah, the toss to Ramel Keaton for the easiest touchdown we'll ever see at Neyland Stadium in Tennessee football history, that's probably about UConn, if we're going to be honest with you. And credit to Tennessee's players. They're not supposed to be able to run with Jalen Wright, and UConn was not able to. Same with Squirrel White. And Tennessee's offense confused UConn's players who should have been confused. Also have to hit those plays, and they did that. But over the last few weeks, the Alabama game included at least the first half that we saw from Joe Milton, and the Kentucky game overall, and being able to go out there and exploit a much weaker team against UConn. I think a lot of that is Joe. I continue to believe that his impact in the running game makes him a better quarterback overall, makes the offense more dangerous. It causes the defense to have to pay attention to more. There's just more ways for Tennessee to make plays. So I think over the last few weeks, the resurgence, if we're calling it that, or the improvement, which is definite to this point, it comes to Joe changing a little bit of the way that he's playing, and Josh Heupel having a better feel for how to call the game. And his feel is going to be improved when he knows that he can utilize the quarterback in the run game as well as the passing game.
Josh, I know that touchdown pass to Ramel Keaton was the easiest touchdown pass in history. However, and I know that was about UConn, that play wasn't there against Texas San Antonio, and it wasn't there against Austin Peay. And so what I wonder is the reason those easy touchdown passes are there because of the other things that Joe has been able to do so much better recently, using his legs, hitting more of the intermediate routes, things like that are forcing teams, that are allowing Josh Heupel's system with the wide splits to finally work again where those downfield passes are open.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, that particular play, there was just historic confusion, it seemed, on UConn's behalf. But yes, to your point, I think the more that an opposing team has to pay attention to and prepare for and think about against Tennessee's offense, the more opportunity the Vols will have to exploit busts that will happen on the opposing side. Let's see. This Missouri defense 2 years ago got completely gashed by Tennessee's running game and was embarrassing, honestly. It looked like Missouri hadn't practiced or prepared for anything that Tennessee was going to do. Last year in the second half, Tennessee took off and was able to do what it wanted to. Missouri tightened that game up a little bit in the middle part. And remember, Joe Milton came in and hit a bomb to Squirrel White to close things out. Could have taken a knee to run out the clock. Instead, they decided, let's just launch the ball 50 yards down the field and see if we can tag on one more touchdown. So let's see if Missouri's defense is better prepared. They have some players. They've been really good against the run, but as we discussed earlier, so was Texas A&M, so was Kentucky at the time, and they couldn't do anything against Tennessee's rushing attack. Tennessee's going to try to repeat that again this week with Joe Milton to go along with Jalen Wright, who has to be motivated. I'm sure he is every game. He talked up what this running game could be this season, and they've backed it up. But the leading rusher in the SEC is on Missouri's side. I'd say that Ray Davis playing for Kentucky was a little extra motivation for Jalen Wright, and Schrader from Missouri might be the same for Jalen this week.
What do you think went through? What was the count when Tennessee decided to throw it deep? What was the score against Missouri? Do you remember the score off the top of your head, Josh?
What did they finish with 62 last year?
I thought it was 66.
Yeah.
Last year was 66.
Maybe it was 62.
One of the last two seasons. But yeah, they were destroying them. So
yeah, can you imagine being? Imagine being on the sideline. You're a head coach and you're down 3 touchdowns and you see a deep ball and you're that fan base. Even if that's the right read, no matter what, even if you're running your offense, that's not going to sit well with your fan base or the other coaches, no matter what, right?
I wouldn't think so. Yeah, Caleb's right. They scored 66. So it's 59-24 with, I think a minute and change to go. I mean, the game's over.
You're up 35 points.
Yeah. They were able to take a knee the rest of the way and run the clock out, but decided to launched the ball halfway down the field. So, yeah, and Drinkwitz after the game didn't complain about it. He said in his post-game press conference, my job is to stop him, which is what fans often want to hear, right? Hey, you got to go stop him. But it wasn't sportsmanlike to do that when the game was over. And, my favorite thing after was, well, hey, Joe and Squirrel, they need the reps to get ready for next season. Did you see the start of this season? Did that rep help them at the start of this year? So it was, just a bogus response. Just say what it was. Tennessee wanted to put on more points. They wanted to attack on another touchdown. Josh Heupel, he remembers that Missouri hired somebody else a few years ago. I mean, that's what it was. So that's fine. But, I'm sure Missouri thinks about that a little bit. But more importantly, they probably want to they want to snap this losing streak that they have to Tennessee, and they want to finish on a high note after a really disappointing result last week against Georgia.
Yeah, let's get to some comparisons. Joe Milton's late season resurgence compared to some others. It's 4 downs, and it's brought to you by our friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Some names, good and bad, from the past. Garantano, Dobbs, Crompton, Ainge. How does this late season resurgence compare to those? We'll ask Josh Ward that very question. You can hear him noon to 3 on the Sports Animal. As for Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. So, Cooper Mays, what should people do that want to be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you. All right, here we go.
Coop here. First down.
First down. Guys, let me throw it to Josh first. I'll go back and forth. How does this comeback compare to Garantano of 2019, Josh?
It's pretty comparable in that a lot of fans, more so with Garantano in my opinion, but a lot of fans were ready to just move on and see a young quarterback. And the young quarterback behind Joe Milton is a lot more talented, a lot more highly rated than the guys that were behind Garantano. But the fan base was saying, hey, let's see what's next. So to me, it's comparable to Garantano and where the fans were with that quarterback.
All right, Caleb?
Yeah, I think it's comparable too. I think where the big difference is that Tennessee was not only was Garantano not throwing well, Tennessee was not winning early in 2019. I mean, they lost to Georgia State and BYU. And looking back, I think part of it was, and I don't know what we're going to see of these receivers this year, but I think this one is a little bit more impressive because, let's be honest, Garantano, you look at the NFL right now, Juwan Jennings, Marquez Callaway, and Josh Palmer are all in the NFL. So Garantano had a bigger arsenal of weapons but he also had a worse coach. So, weigh it in and out either way.
Yeah, Garantano was trying to make his comeback happen with Jeremy Pruitt at the helm, not exactly known for his ability to get an offense going. And I will stand by, more people were out on Jared Garantano after remember the Alabama fumble at the goal line. It's a bad play. Everybody recognizes that, the face mask grab, but just about every fan said, I don't want to ever see him on the field again. And I wrote an article for Sports Animals website that week saying, not only will you see him, you will need him, and you will need him this week. And I remember people saying, friends that I know say, I don't care. I don't want to see him. It's like, no, you got to have him or you're not going to win games. Like, I don't care. And he went out there and he played better and he helped them win games. They needed him at Kentucky. They needed him against South Carolina and Missouri.
College football sounding like a Scorsese movie. You're dead to me. You're gone. Get out of here. It seems like Dobbs 2015. Comparable, Josh?
No, I think there was still a lot more belief in Dobbs' potential, and the competition in the second half of that season was pretty weak. I think on the road against Kentucky, if he plays well, I mean, part of this is projection, I think, with Joe in this conversation. At Missouri, a ranked team, even Alabama on the road. It's also, to me, a little difficult to compare the 6-year guy versus a true junior who is still clearly in development mode.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Crompton 2009, that's getting to a couple teams I covered really closely. That was and sorry, Caleb, I didn't mean to shortchange you. How about you lead us off on this one? That was a case where they found what Crompton did well, and that was read one half of the field, a lot of rollouts. So your thoughts on the Dobbs 2015 and Crompton 2009? I don't know that schematically you could do anything to overhaul this offense for a quarterback. So I don't think you even have that option if you thought you did it with Joe Milton.
I think it's much more similar to Crompton 2009 than Dobbs 2015. I agree with Josh. Dobbs 2015. I don't think Dobbs played poorly through the first 5 games of that year. I think he was just Butch Jones just made some basic in-game mistakes against Florida and Oklahoma. But yeah, Crompton, you're right. They figured out how to use him, which is similar to Milton, though. I think Heupel's figured out how to use Milton. It's actually very similar, using Milton on a rollout and using his legs to make plays, just like they figured out with Crompton. And so I actually see a big comparison there.
All right. And then the last one.
Well, what does Josh think about? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Josh, what did you think about Crompton 2009?
Crompton's comparable in that, man, it hadn't gone well. And he was a former highly touted player that fans at one point believed, okay, he's our next big guy, like Milton, with the hype ahead of 2021 and this year, and kind of kept going back to him, and it wasn't working out. Again, the big difference to me with all these spots probably is Nico. I mean, part of the Joe aspect this season, I think, has also been wanting to see that 5-star guy and what he could do, because Caleb pointed out some of the Joe complaints was while Tennessee was winning. Not at Florida, didn't win that game, I know, but they're winning games still in a positive position, ranked in the top 20. That would be different than some of these other spots.
Yeah, and sorry, Cooper, I apologize. He's getting in my ear here. That was
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Thank you. And now?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Ainge 2007. I thought from the day that Eric Ainge stepped on campus that he was going to be the starter and the guy, and that there were no issues from the quarterback position. I think there were issues in coaching. But I mean, to me, there was never much of a comeback, I guess, so to speak. And Caleb, let me start with you since you wrote this one down. There's never much of a comeback because I thought he would always be a very good player. Maybe I'm misremembering that.
Remember 2007, Tennessee started the year 1-2 with 2 bad losses, and then they suffered a bad loss at Alabama later in the year. The East should have been gone, and then they finished strong with eking out wins over Vanderbilt and Kentucky, which is crazy to say, but they won those games because of how Eric Ainge played. I mean, Eric Ainge played like a poised veteran throughout November, the senior that he was. Now, again, I think part of that was the defense maybe got a little bit better because they were horrible at the beginning of the year. But I do think Eric Ainge was a lot more efficient of a thrower. I think he had trouble adjusting to life without Robert Meacham in September and October of 2007.
Josh?
Yeah, if we're going to talk about an Ainge resurgence, to me, that's 06, where he and the team bounced back from disappointing 05. 07 was a weird year. Remember when they lost that Alabama game? That's Nick Saban's first game as Alabama's coach. And Dave, I think we're coming back to Knoxville wondering, is this going to be it for Phillip Fulmer? Because it was such an awful loss, and they had been destroyed by Florida earlier in the season, but they did rally, and Caleb was right. Eric was a big part of that. He has the 7 touchdowns with the overtimes included, of course, against Kentucky. That Arkansas game was a funny one because with those defensive issues, the talk leading up to that is this is Darren McFadden's Heisman game. And then Tennessee shut him down. Felix Jones got hurt at the start of the game, and Gerard Mayo came into the media room afterward and said Darren McFadden was not winning a Heisman in Neyland Stadium. So the media deserves all kinds of credit because we kept pumping up these storylines and they kept responding to them. I had Ryan Carl tell me on our 12-3 show, yes, you guys deserve credit for how we played, because if not for some of the outside criticism we felt was coming in, we probably wouldn't have responded the way that we did. So Eric was a big part of that. The team was. It was a weird year. They almost won the SEC title against LSU, but we know how that game ended up.
I went up to Gerard Mayo, and I went up to Gerard Mayo, and I just told him, hey, he gets my Heisman vote anyway. That McFadden guy's pretty good.
He should have won the Heisman anyway over Tebow. But
did you have somebody stand in between you and Gerard when you said that to him? Because Gerard's a very nice guy, but I've also seen how he can hit people.
And Josh told me to do it. Here he's standing here.
By the way, media coverage of Tennessee that year, and I don't ever blame the media, but let's be honest, the exterior coverage, I think a lot of people, Fulmer himself, feel like that's what killed the 2008 recruiting class. I think he had a lot of trouble recruiting in 2008.
It was
because you guys were so mean to him on the field.
It was my fault. Josh.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, I didn't have my show yet in 07. My show started in 08. So no, that's Dave's fault.
Yeah. all my bad. Josh, we can listen to you from noon to 3. We can read your column. It's fantastic on offthehooksports.com, where you take a look at some of the road woes under Josh Heupel. I don't think there is a common theme. I think it's just a program that's building. You're going to lose some games that you wanted to win on the road. You're going to win some that you probably shouldn't have. But they all seem pretty simple to me. Josh, anything else, sir? We greatly appreciate your time as always.
No, just I ended the column saying that Tennessee's playing for a lot. I believe that to feel better about being on the road, a chance to win at least 9 games in the regular season, which means a chance to win 10 in the regular season or with a bowl game, because we're assuming how that Vanderbilt game will go. So I didn't expect at the beginning of the season that the Missouri game would mean as much for Tennessee as it does, both internally and to the outside. But this game means a lot for Tennessee.
Now, and so am I good on
And on the flip side, by the way, there is what you're trying to avoid. If Tennessee loses, then we will be talking more about, well, Tennessee on the road, and okay, is it going to be 8-4, 4-4 in conference? So part of it is what you're trying to avoid as well as what you're trying to build on.
Yeah. So last thing, the most important thing, are we good with me being known as Uncle Dave now? Because I already ordered a hat because I don't have any nephews or nieces and won't, because me and my wife are only children. So I'm trying to be a adopted uncle for Josh's 3 kids. I hope it works out, because I've already ordered a hat that says world's best uncle. There's no even competition.
Looking at my Venmo, my PayPal.
Oh, I've got to pay to be an uncle.
My Cash App. Nothing in the notes about a 529 investment. So
nothing like a hooker asking to be uncle to your kids.
Yeah, I'm on the lookout for that.
Yeah. Somebody asked me if you could pay for a book via Facebook. Like, I don't know how to do that, but I don't trust that Zuckerberg at all. It's my response. Is that a good response or a bad response? Could that get political quick, Josh?
Is this show broadcast on Google-y owned YouTube?
Oops. Oops. I'm a big Bezos guy, by the way. I love the Bezos, not so much the Zuck.
Bezos doesn't own Google. No, it's who owns Alphabet? I forget his name. It's Alphabet Inc. Is
what it's called. I thought Bezos owned us.
No, Bezos owns Amazon.
He probably does somehow. Josh, have a fantastic day. We appreciate it.
See you, Caleb. See you, Hook.
See you, Hook. Yeah. So there's some way that Jeff Bezos owns us all, right? He's undergoing this medical procedure to become immortal. How about that? Yeah, these doctors have wasted all that time curing like cancer and heart disease when it was ultimately death that was the biggest factor.
We're in a modern day Gilded Age. That's all we are in. And Bezos and Elon Musk are the new John Rockefellers of the world. Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg are the new John Rockefeller and Henry Ford and whoever else that was at the turn of the 20th century, that they just had, they like owned like all the money and they just owned humans basically, even though you technically didn't have slavery, but they had so much power they could own humans. The robber barons.
Caleb's uplifting moment of the day brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over $5 million in sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Go to facebook.com, find Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. You'll be glad you did. So, yeah. So basically, Caleb telling us that we're living off the backs of others is what you wanted to let us know today, right?
Well, no, I mean, no, we're in the new age where they're living off the backs of everybody who made them famous, and they're just hoarding all the money for themselves. I mean, Jeff Bezos, what does he use his money for? You know, usually wealthy people are like, let me use money to endow a library or something to make myself famous. Jeff Bezos is like, I'm going to do a vanity trip around the world in an astronaut suit.
Yeah, it's like the guy who invented the Nobel Prize. Do you know what he was famous for? It was inventing dynamite.
Yeah, he invented dynamite. Yeah. And
so the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah. Also, since I've seen the comment, yeah, you know you're in a Gilded Age where somebody like Jimmy Haslam can be worth $4 billion after being so pathetic at everything he does in life. Okay, there, I said it. I never miss a chance to take a shot at him.
Well, I can't forgo that one either. All right, coming up on the program, we will talk Lady Vols face FSU Thursday. Men to face Wisconsin on Friday. Are the cupcake games done and over with? Also, Week 11 picks. Make some money with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Stay tuned. More after this. 2 minutes. Give me that, and I'll give you another great segment of content right here on Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
What do you think went through Eli Drinkwitz's head last year as that bomb on the final drive was being thrown over his noggin, his combed over noggin, and he's thinking, they're going to hang a 60s burger on me. That's what's about to happen here. What do you think was going through his head?
I think what was going through his head was, please don't get me fired, because it was the coach that he was hired over that hung 60 on him. He's probably
we had that question on the message board. Explain that for everybody that's not aware of the situation.
So after Missouri fired Barry Odom in 2019, for the record, Missouri wasn't a good job at that point. So they didn't have a good pick of the litter or a good set of candidates. I wasn't sure they should have fired Barry Odom, but they did. Josh Heupel had gone undefeated at UCF and then like 9-3 or something, like 10-3 the next year, and really wanted that Missouri job because he was the offensive coordinator that was behind the resurgence that happened in 2016 and 2017. They wanted a little more. They went for Eli Drinkwitz instead, who had won the Sun Belt at Appalachian State for 1 year. And a lot of people didn't feel like Eli Drinkwitz was qualified for that job. You could question Heupel being qualified, but I think he was more qualified than Eli Drinkwitz. But they went for Drinkwitz. And honestly, Drinkwitz had a good start. He went 5-5 his first year at Missouri. And Dave, just so you know, that was the COVID year. Nobody expected Missouri to be that good his first year. But we know it was COVID, so it doesn't count.
I'm not going to repeat it, Smoky Mountain Red, but I'm not going to put it up on the screen. But that's exactly what I would have said, because that was my grandfather's favorite saying. I don't want to give it away, really, but it's, well, blank. Well, well, nothing I can do about it. Might as well just live with it. Rocky Top Tom says, I shouldn't have run my mouth. That's what he should be thinking. Travis says, I'm in over my head, just like the Steve ball is over our head. He said, Heupel stole my signs. Elias says, wow, we really let this get away from us. Still, though,
remember, it was 20-24 in the third quarter.
My favorite is, well, bleep. Just, I mean, that's the ultimate. None of that worked. All right, let's get to some picks. Caleb will make you some money. Questionable picks as of late, right? Or was it earlier?
What are you talking about? I balled out last week.
Okay. All right. I knew he'd start with Rowan. He's going to do the pompous English voice here in a second. But you did ball out last week. What did you go last week?
All right, guys. I went 16-7 last week, and my extra best bets paid off because I went 4-1 on the best bets, and so I am now 110-91 on the year, and I'm back above 500, 17-15, baby. So
you have to be above 500 plus 10% though to cover the juice, right?
52%. So I'm at 17 divided by 32. I think does cross 52. I'm not doing the math in my head.
I would be more confident if you knew your math.
Well, okay. On a scale to 96, that's 51. It's 52%. It's 52%. Give me some breaks here, okay? I've hit 52%. I'm making money. So come at me, bro. Let's go. Let's hit it.
Go to the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to Hemp House Chat with 2 T's, Hemp House Chat with 2 T's.com. All righty here. Let's go with your picks. As we start Alabama, you've got an 11-point favorite, but covering, and the over is 46.5. So you think more than 46? I don't know if these two teams can get together and score more than 46 points.
I think you're stuck on Nick Saban of 2011. I think Alabama alone can score more than 46. I got Alabama covering I get it. The spread kind of tricked me for a minute. I'm like, who thinks Kentucky can stay within 2 touchdowns of Alabama at home? But
by the way, Travis says, so in football terms, Caleb is coaching a 4-4 team. Great job, Caleb. Way to win a participation award.
Okay. I've got Alabama.
I got one of those from my son. I got one of those in lacrosse for my son when he was a freshman his first year. Would you like me to ship you that? I can send that to you.
I'm turning a profit, guys. Okay. So here we go.
Okay.
All right. So Alabama covers at Kentucky. And I got the over in that one. And I think the over because look, Dave, I think Alabama's on a mission now to not just, they got to win impressively to get to the playoff. And I think Jalen Milroe, I think Nick Saban's going to try to put him in the Heisman race on purpose.
All right, so South Carolina is a 14-point favorite over Vanderbilt. You've got South Carolina. Is it just as simple as Vandy's just horrible?
I think South Carolina had a tougher opponent last week in Jacksonville State than they have in Vanderbilt this week. And so, yeah, I think South Carolina is going to cover this one. I think it's a no defense game. Vanderbilt has a horrible defense. South Carolina has a horrible defense. South Carolina has Spencer Rattler. This game's going to hit the over. That's my best pick of this, but I think South Carolina is going to cover too.
Michigan, a 4-point favorite at Penn State. You like Michigan? I do not. And I think Michigan is one of the best 2 teams in the country. But with all that's going on, the constant attention to sign stealing and that sort of thing, I think Penn State actually upsets Michigan. This is one of those I tell you I have about every 5 or 6 football seasons that I feel really good about that I would bet my own money. So I've actually got Penn State in an upset. Maybe even would take the money line on that. But I got Penn State winning because too much going on there at UM.
I think Michigan is the most unpredictable team in college football. They're the best team. They have looked like the best team in college football, and they have played the worst schedule in college football. So you don't know what to make of that. And then on top of that, I get what you're saying, Dave. There's all this scandal stuff surrounding them now. I feel like they're going to respond differently. I feel like they are on a mission now. I think it's going to be like, remember Cam Newton when he was playing with the money, with the allegations, and Cam Newton just went off on everybody at Auburn?
Yes.
I think Michigan's going to do that at Penn State. I do think the overhits. I think 44.5 is a little bit too low.
It didn't seem to bother Reggie Bush and that crew as the investigation was ongoing. And he had like a $300,000. Well, nowadays that wouldn't even get you.
It was the stupidest scandal. She was having his family stay in hotels while they came to see him play. Like how?
Well, they had a real house. I mean, they had a house.
Oh wow. Okay, that was.
We don't have to bounce around. South Carolina, 14-point favorite over.
We just covered
Vanderbilt.
South Carolina.
Yeah, as we mentioned, Michigan, 4-point favorite over Tennessee. So you like Michigan. I like Penn State big. We're going to hold Tennessee and Missouri, but it's on the website if you want to go to offthehooksports.com. As far as your best bets, one is Alabama -11 at Kentucky, and then Duke plus 14.5 at North Carolina. Why do you love the Blue Devils, who, by the way, just picked up a monstrously good basketball commitment, I believe?
I know I missed on them with Louisville, but I think it's a little different with North Carolina. One, Duke and UNC is never really a home game for one team because they're like 30 miles away from each other. And I think so. If it's a home game for UNC, it's only because Duke has no football fans to begin with. But I think Duke is going to cover. I like Mike Elko, the coach, and I think UNC is just stumbling down the stretch. And I love Duke's defense. I know Drake May is great, but I just don't think Drake May has enough help. So I think Duke covers.
All right. Colorado money line versus Arizona. You like Colorado. It's an interesting pick.
Yeah, Colorado, I've had a good read on Colorado the last few weeks. I pretty much nailed them every week, and I think they have to win this game if they want a shot at a bowl down the stretch, because this will get them to 5 wins, and they got to get a road upset at the end. I think they're going to upset Arizona, who's gotten 2 great upset wins the last 2 weeks. I think it's been emotionally draining for Arizona to get those upset wins. I think going into Colorado, I think Colorado has just enough left in the tank to pull out a shocker in this one.
Okay. Auburn at Arkansas, you like the under at 48.5, and USC at Oregon, you like the over at 73.5. Well, I'm right there with you with the USC Oregon. I mean, man, Southern California, they have, I don't want to say a generationally great offense, which would be along the lines of that Cam Newton offense or LSU's 2019 offense. But they've got a really good offense to be undermined by just inept defense. Why they didn't make that coaching change and they finally did with their DC after the season, I'll never know, because this could be a team that would be competing for a national title. In the end, I think it's going to be a team that's going to struggle to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, and I think let's take the money here for a minute. USC is on the road. It's a Lincoln Riley defense on the road against a Heisman caliber quarterback. Dave, are we sure that Bo Nix himself won't cover 73.5?
So crazy to me to think that Bo Nix is as good as he is. There was a time at Auburn I thought he was washed up and done.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think the over hits with USC and Oregon. And I think USC, Lincoln, I mean, Caleb Williams is going to score he's going to get his points, right? And, yes. But I think Bo Nix is going to ball out against a terrible USC defense. And at Oregon, I just think this is Oregon wins pretty easily, but I think Oregon wins easily, like 62-41 or something like that. So where we doing? You want me to do my Tennessee pick?
I want to save your Tennessee pick. Do you want to do it now?
We always save it, and then I never actually get to it.
Okay, well, go ahead and do it then. Tennessee -2. You like the Vols?
I do like the Vols. I like Tennessee -2 at Missouri, and the reason is, like I said, the line started as a pick'em and moved 2 points to Tennessee. I think that means Luther Burden is more hurt than we think. And can you really bet against with this game when Josh Heupel has dropped 60 on Eli Drinkwitz 2 years in a row? 1 year when he was the underdog at Missouri.
And that really puts the burden on Missouri's defense.
I wanted to make that joke too. So now the over under 58.
You got to take a swing, shoot or shoot.
Now here's a great storyline. Missouri 2 years ago was actually the first game where Josh Heupel made the decision to start Hendon Hooker over Joe Milton when they were both fully healthy. Funny enough. And that was where he actually finally decided to go with Hooker full time. Was the Missouri game.
Think that was if you ask the players, that was a monumental game for Tennessee, and that they just kind of really started to believe whether it was Hooker or not. That was a huge game for Tennessee's program.
And what did he do? He went with Hooker. The players believed, and he made it pretty much clear at that point. That was the first game where by choosing to go with Hooker, he makes it clear Hooker's my starter now and not Joe Milton. And so now it's a chance for Joe Milton to finally get his against Missouri. And so the question becomes offensively, 58.5. Dave, I think the over's hitting. What about you?
I could roll with over. On that for sure. All right. So Tennessee basketball this weekend. You asked the question, are the cupcake games out? And I say to you, yeah, they should have been out already. You only play 30 some odd games. I can handle a couple of cupcakes, but that's about it. The Lady Vols will face FSU. And the men will face Wisconsin on Friday. So are the days of cupcakes in college basketball dying? I hope so. I mean, there were times that I was on campus and I was there during the, what would 92 to 98 be? That would be Kevin O'Neal primarily, and then
Wade Houston, Kevin O'Neal, Jerry Green.
Okay. There were literally times that I did not know if a game was going on campus, and I'm a sports guy. Okay. So yeah, I think that if you want to make the regular season relevant again, you play big name opponents. Now you can't decide whether or not they're good, but you play big name opponents. And I think the whole game needs to change from a philosophical standpoint. 20 quality wins, slight exaggeration, but let's say you have 12 quality wins and 20 wins at the end of the year, should be much bigger than 26 wins and 6 quality wins at the end of the year. So you asked the question, should cupcakes go away? I say yes. And I think the whole sport needs to shift its thinking to resurrect a pretty much dead regular season.
I didn't just ask if cupcakes should go away. I asked if they were going away. Are they going away? And the question, I think, becomes, see, Dave, with the 68 team tournament, it doesn't make, I still don't know if that helps the regular season because so many teams get in. But let's go back to the history of college basketball real quick. Tell me if I'm right about this, and if it's been the same since you've been watching college basketball, because it is for me. You start your season in November playing really soft competition. And then your first real test is like some Thanksgiving tournament you're in, right? There's some Thanksgiving tournament on a neutral location where you play, like, you're in with a bunch of really good teams and y'all all play each other. And that's like your first real test, right?
Either that or they typically take the 1 out of 4 or 5 year trip to Europe. But yes.
Yeah, something like that. Then they come home and you play another round of cupcakes in December. And then also in December, you've got like 2 big non-conference marquee games sprinkled in, don't you? Like, used to be like a Memphis, a Gonzaga, something like that.
Yeah. By the way, the Memphis thing needs to come back. But anyway.
Yeah. So you do that, and then you start your conference schedule. I'm not so sure. Here's what I think is what's shocking about this is the Lady Vols and the men's team are playing marquee games before Thanksgiving, which never happens, honestly. And I'm starting to think that I think in an age of NIL, Dave, I think what's happening is their coaches and athletic directors are saying we need to fill the stands more to make more money. So because we're not going to get as much help from our boosters. So things like signing home and homes with Wisconsin or Florida State in November before Thanksgiving is a big deal. I don't know if you notice this. It's not just November regular season games, exhibitions. Tennessee played Michigan State in an exhibition game this year. They played Gonzaga last year. These are big. They're not just, you're not typically historically, I think the schools like Tennessee or the big schools, you want to play like a really smaller regional school in an exhibition to just help them out, throw them a check here or there, give them some promotion. And I think now they're realizing we can't do that anymore. We really got to kind of test ourselves against big name opponents in exhibition games.
Well, I think it makes it relevant too. So that was Roto 22. I said I've watched every game during the regular season for like the past 10 years. Didn't realize the regular season was dead. Well, mainstream sports media, it is to some extent. And you don't hear as much coverage, if at all, during the regular season as you do the postseason. I think you would agree that it's a postseason tournament. Now, the question is that I have too is, what will these conversations be like when we turn to football? Will we immediately start to question teams that aren't playing a tough enough schedule? Caleb, is that going to happen anytime soon in football, like it might be happening in basketball or have happened, as you said?
Yeah, it's happened in basketball. I think when you go to a 12-team playoff, you have to put a lot more emphasis on schedule strength going forward. I just think you do, because that's the big difference between the 8-4 18th ranked team and the 10-2 10th ranked team is typically a schedule difference. And look, it's going to be a big deal. Look there, and for the record, in the NCAA selections committee's defense, they've been big on this for a good like 25, 30 years, where they've been very clear that we'd rather you go 16-14 and play a brutal non-conference schedule than go 23-5 and play cupcakes the whole time. I remember there was one year in 2000 when Jim Herrick was at Georgia. Georgia went 16-14 and got into the NCAA tournament, and everybody got mad. And this happens. You know how the bubble team that always complains about getting left out every year? That's like, we should have been in the tournament. How could we not be? If you have to make the case to be in the tournament as a bubble team, you didn't deserve it, because there's 68 chances or 35 at large chances or whatever. Typically, the team that's left out is always the team that didn't have an impressive non-conference resume in December and November, where they didn't play tough non-conference schedules. And I think the selection committee's been very clear. We'd rather you just go out and play teams. Even if you lose, just play them. And
yeah, so let me ask you this with football. What's your perfect opponent? Brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT. That's HAT to receive some free swag with your order right down below. Available most anywhere in the U.S. That's tncidercompany.com, tncidercompany.com. Mine's Pitt. That's about as low as far as your headliner non-conference opponent. Mine's Pitt. That's about as low as you should go. It's a pretty good football team, but really you should try to have something with more star power like they had with Oklahoma. Now, obviously, they're going to be in the SEC, so that's a bad example. But can you schedule a Southern Cal? Can you schedule a UCLA? You need one headliner with some pizzazz in the football realm. After that, I don't care if you play 2 cupcakes. That doesn't bother me at all. Play one with some pizzazz. The fans deserve that.
Yeah, one with pizzazz you have to do. And Tennessee's always tried to do that. And I think that's kind of you don't want to do what I think Auburn is the worst. Hasn't Auburn historically been the worst abuser of just never playing anybody out of conference? And, I think, look, part of this is it depends on what everybody else is doing, doesn't it? Like if the selection committee is going to just go top 12 and go on overweight record, and you're out here playing USC or somebody like that every non-conference, and Auburn is playing Sam Houston State or Texas A&M, which they do a lot too, except for Miami this year, then you got to really rethink your scheduling a little bit. And I don't know how they're going to go. And here's the question, Dave. You have to balance what's good for fans in different ways. It's better for fans, and let's take it football and basketball. It's better for fans to have these marquee games. We all agree with that, right? It's better for fans to have the marquee games. But it's better for these smaller schools to play them, because if you don't play them, they're going to go defunct. They're going to be extinct. Now, maybe Dave or somebody else would say, fine, it's too watered down anyway, so get rid of some of these schools because they're not bringing any value to the sport. That's a fair way to think about it. But is it worth sacrificing some marquee games to kind of keep smaller schools afloat?
No.
Or do you think so? You don't think Dave's the ultimate capitalist, winner take all?
Good luck to you. The Lady Vols used to give tickets away at the Pilot. When you check out, you could pick up tickets. That was marketing. So maybe the UTCs of the world can start giving out tickets at gas stations. I mean, I'm sorry, that's where it is. I mean, if I'm going to get this huge monstrous thing of a 32-36 team mega conference, I'm not worried about what's going on elsewhere. Sorry. Hit the bricks, kick rocks. I don't care.
Dave is the ultimate capitalism. Got winners and losers. If you didn't make it, you didn't make it, and tough break. Fell behind.
Yeah. Tough Leafy, said the kitty. All right, so I mean, I want to see those marquee matchups. I'm fine with, and listen, here's the way I would do it exactly. One marquee matchup. So I would pick a team that I didn't really have a lot of faith in being a program from year to year, but had pizzazz. So like the first team that popped to mind would be UCLA. I picked UCLA because I don't think that they're not going to be winning multiple championships here anytime soon, but they have an awful lot of pizzazz, and you get to play in the Rose Bowl. UCLA looks cool in Neyland Stadium. So I'm just picking that one random team. And then the rest of them would be all in-state teams. So it would be UTC, or it would be Vanderbilt. No, they're not Division II. Sorry. Or it would be, I don't know. Give me another one. MTSU. Yeah.
I would do. Here's what I do.
So the money stays in state.
That's for my easy game. I do one marquee matchup a year. I agree. Something like, because look, ideally, SEC, you got to go to 9 conference games. Am I right? You can't stick with 8.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're 9, so we're planning for 3. So I'm a 1 and 2 type of guy. 1 big name, 2 not big.
Yeah, so I'm 1 big name, then 1 like group of 5 level, like, and it could be in-state or out-of-state. It could be like a Fresno State, a Marshall. You know what I mean? Like one of those type of teams that
no
UAB.
They might beat you.
Okay, UAB.
I just go back to.
I think
it
you got
2005 that Tennessee played Marshall? If Stan Hill, the quarterback, hadn't gotten hurt.
03. I remember
that. 03?
Yeah.
Marshall beats that Tennessee football team in Neyland Stadium, and that's not a bad Tennessee football team. Don't play anybody that might get up and can beat you. Those are the worst.
Okay, well, I think you got to do 3 separate tiers. One is a power fight. Let's just do it this way. I know, guys, when I say these phrases, I know they won't exist next year, but it's easier to say Power 5 right now, Dave, isn't it? Everybody understands that Power 5 is not going to be a thing in a couple of years. But for right now, let's just use that phrase.
Okay, Power 3.
Power 3. 1 future Power 3 team, 1 Power 5 team. 1 Division I, but not Power 5 team. That's what I'm talking about. You know, the schools that are at the lower level. You gotta play one of those schools.
No, it's
you can't
UCLA.
Play you
it's
cannot
UCLA,
play two Division
and
II
then
schools.
it's the annual matchup with Tennessee Tech. And
okay, but there's a third game.
Form a rivalry out of that, and then the third matchup is the annual matchup versus MTSU, or you call Vanderbilt and see if they'd be interested in playing another game.
But wait a minute. MTSU is a non-Power 5 Division I team. That's what I'm talking about. MTSU, Memphis, or those are the only two in-state schools not in the SEC that are not Power 5 but Division I. But that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
and so. Yeah, MTSU.
But you're talking about a Fresno State or a Marshall. I don't want anybody.
Okay, throw those names out. Throw those names out of your head. But like an MTSU, or maybe, like I said, maybe a UAB or a Georgia Southern or a, a Division I school that is not Power 5. And then play one Division II school. You can't play two Division II schools. Then you're going to get way too much flack from everybody. You play two
Division II schools because I'm going to beat them, and I'm going to be sitting there with a minimum of 9 wins at the end of the year, and you're going to have to look at me.
NCAA has a rule where you can only count one Division II win towards your record every year.
Okay, well then find the lamest Division I team.
That's what I'm talking about. What if you play two Power 5 teams? Then you can then you actually look a little better. I mean, I'm just saying,
it doesn't matter how you look anymore because you're going to be sitting there with 9 wins at the end of the regular season.
What if you're Georgia, for instance, and you're locked in with Georgia Tech every year, which is not a Power 5 team, but not a good team? Do you still try to schedule a marquee Power 5 game, even though you're locked in with Georgia Tech every year?
No, that's my Power 5 team. Well,
okay.
But if I'm at Georgia, I'm in a different place altogether. I'm scheduling the best, the brightest, because I want more TV coverage.
What about Florida?
I'm calling Southern Cal, and I'm saying, hey, listen, if that Lincoln Riley cat's sticking around, we'd like to play next year.
See, this is why my dream is 8 conference games. I think it should be 8 conference games, but you can't because you're going to 16. So I know I have to do 9. But the reason 8 would always feel better is that, like, I love the idea of 4 non-conference games, which is I like 2 Power 5 non-conference games, 1 Group of 5, and then 1 Division 2. Because, for instance, Florida, I'd love to see Florida play Florida State and Miami every year.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but that's their one, and it's not what I'm doing if I'm Tennessee, but maybe I'm doing that at Florida because I want more recruiting exposure because I play those guys. So, I mean, a different argument could be had. Mine's specific to Tennessee. So what's their non-conference schedule next year?
Next year,
This is what I would do if I'm athletic director Danny White, because Daniel's right. With 12 teams getting in, why wouldn't you take the easier games? Amen, Daniel. Okay,
so you're not there. It's Chattanooga, NC State, Kent State, and UTEP.
Love it.
But guess what? That's 2 Division I teams that are not.
But it's not a good. But it's not a good Division I team.
But that's the point. Okay, here's a question. If you're Tennessee, how about this? For that lower level Division I, would you ever do home and homes with Memphis anymore in football? Given the fact that Memphis is now actually a decent football program, so you can't just blow them out like you did every year, except that 1 year in '96 that they don't stop talking about. Because you can recruit.
Not that it touched a nerve or anything for the Memphian Caleb Calhoun.
Oh no,
Lord.
They still have signs up. 21-17, 1996, guys. It's really funny. Would you play them?
I would seriously try to schedule a second game with Vanderbilt to get more recruiting exposure in the Nashville area. Would they let you do that?
Memphis recruiting is better than Nashville recruiting, and the data backs me up on that.
That's very true. We've heard that before. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the